Okay, July 5th, 2022. Haec ego, these things I, ut acepi, as I received them, as I heard them, sudore frigido. This is the blade for probably in a cold sweat, miser, which would go with the ego. I, the wretch, having heard these things, per fluo, can it mean dripping, producing this cold sweat. Tremore looks ablative, viscera quatior. So I was shaking. This is these entrails in the ablative. They're shaking as well. They're with the trembling entrails. So that ut grabatulus is this cot. Even sacusu meo, even with my shaking, that's a fourth. In quietus. So this is like restless or in a motion. So the cot is in some motion by his shaking. Super dorsum meum, that's their accusatives of apposition. Above my back, palpitando, that's the gerund, saltaret. So this his cot was dancing around above his back in palpitations. Okay, the viscera was the neuter as well. At bona panthea, but good panthea, in which he says, why not then? Why then, sister? Must be not hunk, that's a demonstrative pronoun for him. First of all, bacatum, looks like an adverb in the Tim family. Discerpimus, that's us. So why don't we, first of all, rip him apart in a Bacchus style, that's frenzied, or membris eus destinatis. Looks like these go together as tying him up, tie his limbs up, virilia desecamus, and cut off his virility, his manliness. Ad haec mero, to these things mero, sic anum repsi, that's an adverb, for thus, in fact, nomen eos, her name, then fabulous Socratis, this looks like a ablative plural, convenere sentiabam. Okay, so then I sensed, in fact, that her name was in agreement, convenere, with the story of Socrates. Okay. Immo 8 superset. Contrarily, or more precisely, she said, let him remain, that's subjunctive, so that's got that let function, or let hic remain, saltem, adverb at least, qui, who, miscellae, who is corpus. Okay, so who was this? Let him remain. Who was this wretch? Who this body, parvo, ablative contumelet. That's a transitive verb. So let him make a tomb out of him and cover him up, parvo humo, with a little bit of dirt. So let the wretch remain living, at least, so that he can cover up this body with dirt, basically. Et capite, and an ablative of the head of Socrates, in alterum de moto. And so this is move the head of Socrates. Alatus is a neuter, so it can go with alterum. To the other side, so move the head of Socrates into the other side, per jugulum sinistrum. Okay. So it's probably the left side, per jugulum. So it's through the throat. Capulo, that's ablative for the sword handle. Tenos, that's a post-positive. So she's moved his head and to his left side. So the throat has access to the throat as far as the sword hilt. Totem gladium, that's probably a partitive genitive. So all of the sword, demergit eo, was sunk in as far as the hilt, and sanguinus eruptionem. So there's blood bursting out. Utriculu, that's it's like a little bottle made out of skins. Was moved, and moto utriculo. These are ablative absolutes, probably. She did this carefully, so they will receive the bursting out of the blood carefully, so that nulla stilla, no droplet, comparet, could be procured usquem anywhere. So I guess not a drop could be found anywhere. Haec ego meus oculus aspexi. Very short sentence. Aspexi is a perfect. So these things I saw with my eyes. For even, ne quid. So that not anything demutaret should be changed, I believe, from a genitive. So that A goes with religione ablative. So from this religion of sacrificing a victim, in missa dextera, having sent in a right hand, per vulnus, through the wound. Vulnus is neuter, that's why I can take the accusative. Illud ad viscera penitus. So deep into the entrails, core, which looks like nominative, the heart of the wretch, we've got a triple genitive, cubitalis mea, of my wretched, roommate or close friend, meroe bona scrutata, having looked through it well, scrutinized it well, protool it. She must be pulling out the heart, I take it. Cum ille impetu, when he, impetu, by the force of the weapon, praesectata gula, this is a past participle, having his throat cut, remember there was a force of a weapon, his voice, in the accusative, or more precisely, an uncertain screech of stridorem, per vulnus, through the wound, effunderet, that's poured out. So this is the voice, or more of a screech poured out through the wound, and spiritum rebulleret, that's bubbling up. So his spirit was bubbling up through this screech in the wound. Quod vulnus, quad's a neuter relative, so the wound, this wound, which maxime partiat, at its greatest opening, where it was this wound where it was open the biggest, spongia of Falcians, that's a present participle of a fourth conjugation. Pantheus stopped up this wound where it was open at its greatest with a sponge. Heus tu inquit spongia, hey you, she said, sponge. Carve in mari nata. Carve is an imperative, so take care. Born in the sea, it's probably a vocative. Transias, as you cross through the river. So I don't know if it's going back to the sea. Here's editus, ablative. With these things produced, having been said, abiunt, they left. Et una, probably means together. Remoto grabulato, with the cot having been removed. Varicus, which is an adjective for straddling. Super faciamam, above my face. Residentes, it's present participle in the plural, so they were sitting straddled above my face. Exonerunt vesicam, they unburdened their bladder. Looks like a singular word for bladder. Quoad, until me urine sperkissime, that's a double genitive. Here's the ablative with me is probably, so until I was very in moisture, purulent, that's how they've washed me with the dirtiest of their urine. Yeah, sounds great. Commodum limen evaserant. So that's the adverb. Just as the threshold or the doorway evaserant, they'd vetoed out, they'd gone out past the threshold, and the doors, these are like double doors you see in westerns, ad pristinum statum. So that's accusative, to their former state in that position, resurgunt integre. So the doors resurged whole again to their former state. The cardinines ad foramina residunt. So the hinges went back into their holes, ad postes, ad repugula rediunt. So back into the door jambs went the bolt, the repugula, ad claustra pesuli recurrent. So this is so they went back into the door jambs, and they ran back so that the lock was closed again. At ego, but I, as I was, even now projectitus, that's a past passive, so lying out on the ground, inanimus, which is probably unconscious, or out of your anima, which is the breath of life. Nudus, naked, and frigidus, and cold, and perlutus, that's another past passive or adjective. I was washed in urine. Quasi recens, as if recently. Utero matris editus had been produced forth from the womb of my mother. Or ime vero, more precisely, semi-mortus. Virum etiam. Moreover, I was even ipsi myself, surviving myself, a survivor to myself, and posthumous. And so that's afterwards in the future. Either certainly destinate iam cruci candidates, certainly now a candidate, now destined for the cruci, which is the cross of the torture. Quid inquam, what, I said, me subjunctive, shall I become? What shall I become when iste he, Eugulatus, he's past passive when he's with his throat cut, mane, early in the morning, parverit, it's like paro, so when he's arranged with his cut throat early in the morning, I guess he's discovered. Cui videabor, to who shall I seem veri similia dicere, shall I seem to be speaking something similar to the truth, or shall I be seen speaking the truth when I'm bearing the truth? Proclamores, saltem at least, the adverb. You should have shouted at least, suppetitatum, accusative. You should have called at least for help. Si resistere, if to resist, here's their nominative. Avir tantus, a man such as yourself, nequi be, if you were not able to resist Millerite, women. That was a dative to just one woman. Sub oculus tuis, under your eyes, sub the ablative, avex te cum sine pro. Homo ugulatar, that's passive. A man has had his throat cut, and siles, and you were silent. Cur autem te simile latrocinium non perimit. So, but why didn't you die perimit similarly to these bandits? Why didn't these bandits kill you? Cur savia crudelis. Why? So why did their savage cruelty, vel, it probably means even as an adverb, not as a preposition, even on account of a witness of their crime, perpercurit, they spared arbitro, they spared this witness who can be a witness of their crime. Ergo quoniam evasiste mortem. Therefore, since you have evaded death, nunc illo, now to it return. Haec identidem, the adverb micum. These things, again and again with myself, replicabam. I folded them over again in my mind. Et nox ibat in diem, and night continued going on into day. Optimum itaque, and so accordingly, factu, in fact, visum est, it seemed the best thing, the optimum, antiluculo, before dawn, before the light come up, furtim, adverb, to furtively evadere, so to evade furtively before dawn, and VM, and the road, it seemed permissible or the right thing to do, capessere, to take to the road with a trembling steps or footsteps. Sumo saculum meum, I took up my little sack, subdita clavi, and with the key having been moved, pesulos reduco, unbolted the locks. So we moved the key there and undid the bolts. At ille probe, but these upright and fideles and loyal Janue doors, that's nominative, plural, quae sua sponte, which of their own accord, of their own volition, reserate nocte fuerant, which had opened them by themselves during the night, scarcely tandem at last, or at length, and agirimere, with, it's a double last, so we've got, with most difficulty then, clavis sua crebit, and with frequent emissions of the clavis, of the key, pater fiunt, they laid open.